There is a truth about narcissists that most people misunderstand. You believe they move on. You believe they forget. You believe you were replaced. But what if the opposite is true? What if the one person they cannot truly erase is the one who refused to play the role they wrote? The coldness you remember, the indifference, the sudden disappearance. That was never closure. It was performance. Behind the mask, something far less comfortable was happening. Because narcissistic obsession is never random. As Carl Jung observed, what grips the psyche most intensely does not arise from love or desire. It arises from fracture, from something the ego cannot resolve. And there is one type of person a narcissist can never psychologically escape. Not because they loved that person. Not because they desired them. But because that person broke the mask they spent their entire life building. If you are that person, you already felt the moment it happened. Something shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like gravity changing in the room. And from that moment forward, you became something dangerous in their inner world. In this video, you will discover exactly why you became the one person they cannot erase, and why your presence continues to live inside their mind in a place no one else ever reaches. The reason begins with something simple. An invisible script. A script you eventually refused to read. You became the obsession because you represent the only story in their life that never reached its ending. While everyone else followed their lines perfectly, you became the script they simply could not finish. A narcissist does not enter relationships to connect with another human being. They enter relationships to validate a script they have been writing since childhood. In this internal movie, they are the protagonist, the victim, or the hero, and everyone else exists as a prop designed to support that delusion. They rely on this script to function in the world. They expect every person they meet to follow a predictable algorithm. The narcissist applies pressure and the person yields. The narcissist uses charm and the person becomes addicted. The narcissist uses rage and the person becomes fearful. This cycle of stimulus and response is not merely habit. It is the foundation of their reality. It confirms to them that they are powerful, godlike, in control. But then they met you. And eventually, you became the one person who refused to read the lines they wrote for you. You may have asked yourself many times, why didn't they simply discard me like everyone else? Why do they seem unable to fully erase me? The answer is counterintuitive. You are not the obsession because you were the most beautiful, or the richest, or the most submissive. You are the obsession because you were the one they failed to program. In the beginning, you may have played along. You may have tried to be the perfect partner. But at some critical moment, something in you shifted. You stopped reacting to the provocations. You stopped bending to the manipulation. You stopped begging for affection they withheld. This non-compliance creates a massive psychological rupture inside them. Jung explained that the psyche seeks dominance over its environment to maintain a sense of safety. When the narcissist encounters someone they cannot manipulate, their internal world fractures. The predictable cause and effect relationship they depend on suddenly collapses. They push the button that should make you cry, but you look at them with a blank face. They pull the lever that should make you beg, but you quietly walk away. Think back to a moment near the end. Perhaps they were screaming, hurling insults, trying desperately to provoke a breakdown. In the past you might have cried, or fought back, but this time you simply stood there. You looked at them calmly. Maybe you picked up your keys. Maybe you walked out to get coffee. No slammed door. No explosion. Just quiet departure. That moment burned itself into their memory. It wasn't your anger that frightened them. It was your indifference. In that moment, the script failed. The prop acted with free will. And that failure wounds them far deeper than rejection ever could. To their unconscious mind, people fall into two categories: those they conquered, and those they did not. The conquered are forgotten. Once someone becomes broken, compliant, predictable, they lose value. They become a solved puzzle. No more challenge. No more dopamine. No more proof of power. They are discarded and erased. But you are the unsolved puzzle, the anomaly that proved their power had limits. And this is why they cannot move on from you. Because every time your memory surfaces, they are reminded of a moment when their tools stopped working. They do not remember a relationship. They remember a malfunction. They replay events over and over, trying to understand how they lost control, imagining what they should have said, what they should have done, how they could have placed you back inside the script. Their fixation is not about missing you. It is about correcting an error. Your strength became a living contradiction to their belief in their own omnipotence. And that contradiction stays alive in their mind. While they cycle through new partners looking for easy compliance, their thoughts drift back to the one who did not break. But the obsession goes deeper than this. Because at a certain point you stopped reflecting the image they wanted to see, and became something far more threatening. A mirror. Carl Jung described the shadow as the collection of everything we hide from ourselves. Our shame, our insecurity, our weakness, our capacity for cruelty. Healthy individuals gradually integrate their shadow. But the narcissist cannot. They build a grandiose false self to avoid ever confronting it. Most people around them act as flattering mirrors. They reflect admiration. They believe the performance. They reinforce the illusion. But you stopped reflecting the lie. You became something far more dangerous. A shadow mirror. When you stopped accepting the manipulation. When you quietly recognized the contradictions. When you looked at them with silent disappointment. You were no longer reflecting their greatness. You were reflecting their reality. And when they look at you now, they do not see your face. They see their fear staring back. Their inadequacy. Their emptiness. Think back to a dinner party. They were charming everyone. Telling exaggerated stories. Everyone laughing. Everyone captivated. But you knew the truth. You knew about the lies. The debts, the cruelty behind closed doors. You said nothing. You simply looked at them across the table. And in that moment they knew. You saw through the armor. You saw the frightened child hiding beneath the performance. That silent recognition is intolerable to the narcissistic ego. Because admiration they can control. But clear vision they cannot. This is why their reaction becomes volatile. Why they project accusations onto you. Why they call you selfish, unstable, cruel. They are violently expelling traits they cannot accept in themselves. You become the container for their shadow. And they obsess over destroying you because symbolically, they are trying to destroy the evidence. Yet the obsession continues. Because even hatred cannot sever the fascination. Jung observed that the conscious mind is secretly obsessed with what it tries to repress. Your existence holds the truth they cannot face. And that truth pulls on their psyche like gravity. They watch you. They check your life. Not because they love you, but because they need to know if the mirror is still standing. If you collapse, the mirror shatters. Their illusion survives. But if you remain calm, if you thrive, the reflection stays crystal clear. And that reflection is unbearable. Yet the obsession does not truly begin when the relationship ends. It begins at the exact second their control fails. For the narcissist, control is not preference. It is survival. Their internal world is chaotic and saturated with unresolved shame. So they impose rigid order on their environment. They must know that every action will produce a predictable reaction. And for a long time, you provided that reaction. You explained yourself. You defended your character. You justified your actions. Each explanation reinforced their authority. Each defense validated their role as judge. Jung described the persona as the mask we wear to navigate society. The narcissist depends entirely on this mask. But the mask only survives through constant feedback. The moment you stop providing that feedback, the mask destabilizes. And that is when the rupture occurs. Perhaps they insulted your intelligence, or questioned your loyalty. In the past you would have argued, but this time, you simply said, "I hear your opinion," and returned to your phone. The room changed. Something collapsed. Because in their world, reactions obey laws of physics. But in that moment, the laws stopped working. Your indifference deflated their inflated ego. And beneath the silence, panic emerged. Because your reaction had always drowned out the emptiness inside them. Without it, they heard their own interior void. So they escalated. Insults became threats. Threats became emotional manipulation. Fake vulnerability. Emergencies. Anything to provoke your empathy. Anything to make the machine light up again. But when nothing worked, you became something new in their mind. Not a partner. Not an enemy. An unsolved problem. Their psyche began circling you endlessly, trying to understand what changed, trying to recover control. But the real catastrophe occurs when you cut off the true fuel source, your emotional energy. Jung described libido not merely as sexual energy but as psychic life force. Healthy individuals generate it internally. The narcissist cannot. Their inner world is empty, so they must siphon energy from others. Your reactions were their fuel. Your anger, your tears, your pleas. Each one confirmed their importance. Each one fed the illusion of power. But when you stopped reacting, the supply vanished. And what followed was psychological withdrawal. They prefer anger over indifference, because anger is still attention. But neutrality is extinction. Without your reaction, they begin to experience something close to psychic starvation. And the behavior escalates. Accusations, sentimental messages, strange emotional swings. Psychologists call this an extinction burst. The organism presses the button harder when the reward disappears. But the machine no longer responds. And so the obsession grows. Because the mechanism that once controlled you no longer exists. Eventually something stranger happens. You disappear from their life. But inside their psyche, you remain. Jung called this an autonomous complex. When the mind cannot integrate an experience, it stores it as an unresolved knot of psychic energy. Most people the narcissist meets are eventually assimilated, used, broken, filed away. But you were never digested. You remain an undigested experience inside their unconscious, an unfinished task. And the human mind cannot stop revisiting unfinished tasks. This is why, even years later, they may check your life, drive past familiar places, ask mutual friends about you, not for reconciliation, but to engage the unresolved conflict. You became an internal figure Jung called an imago, a powerful image that continues shaping their psyche. While new partners comply easily, their mind drifts back to the one who resisted, because power felt more real when they were trying to break you, and this unresolved tension feeds their fixation. Yet the final trap is even deeper. Psychology describes something called the Zeigarnik effect. The mind remembers unfinished tasks far more vividly than completed ones. The narcissist requires every relationship to end with a specific script. They must be victorious, and you must be destroyed, either begging for them or collapsing under their rejection. Only then can the file close. But you walked away intact. You denied them their ending, and so the task remains open. They may seek closure. But closure is simply another attempt to provoke collapse, to rewrite the ending, to win the breakup. And when that fails, the smear campaign begins, not merely to damage you, but to rewrite reality. They project their behavior onto you. They cast themselves as the victim, because their ego cannot accept the truth that they lost. And so they create a fictional ending. But every time they see you thriving, their story fractures again, and the obsession continues. Because you exist outside the narrative they wrote. You became the limit they could not cross. And that is why they cannot release you. Not because of love. Not because of desire. But because you proved something their psyche cannot tolerate, that their power has limits, and so they carry your memory like a ghost, a reminder of the moment the mask failed. You do not need their closure. You gave yourself closure the moment you chose reality over their illusion. Let them keep the ghost. You keep your life. The script is burned. The mirror is broken. And you are finally free. If something inside you senses that the next step is already unfolding, do not leave this moment unfinished. Continue walking, because the life your unconscious has been guiding you toward is already waiting.